Good everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing day. So what I'm going to do today, right, I'm going to show you how to build a LWC component. Though this seems like a pretty basic video today, but the idea is to build on top of it. So we're going to start from scratch and build on top of it, right? Um, so we're going to build a project. So I'm going to let you know what exactly we're going to build. But today I just wanted you guys to understand the concept. And then once the concepts are clear, then we build a solution. So I wanted to use the same app to build uh, a, a component which can be used. Okay. So the first thing first, right? If you wanted to use LWC, right? If you wanted to develop using LWC, you can't use Developer Console, right? If you've been using Developer Console for a long time, then I'm afraid you can't build using Developer Console, because Developer Console, though it supports Aura framework, right? But the building LWC is not really a viable option using Developer Console. So the best way to use Visual Studio Code, I do understand that there is an IntelliJ IDE you can use, but Visual Studio is free, open source. I'm a Ubuntu user. I don't like to work with Windows much, or Mac. I don't use Mac either, because I consider Mac as a fancy toy with the shell of a Unix. That's the way I look at Mac. So I use Ubuntu, and I wanted an IDE which works well on Ubuntu, and Visual Studio does the job very well. Now, if you haven't used Visual Studio, right, there are a lot of videos out there who explains how to use Visual Studio with Salesforce. Even I've created a video. I'll put the link in the description below. It's a pretty old video, but it still works. It's pretty much the same when it comes to configuration. Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do, so I've created a simple project. It's a blank project, right? I got nothing um, in, installed as a part of LWC um, for this project. So we're using everything from the scratch. So I got a project. I linked this source to a project. So now how do you create a LWC? Okay. So now your Visual Studio Code interface might look a bit different. This tiles, uh, this one appearance might be on the left hand side. In my case, it's on the right hand side because that's the way I like it. Okay. You can customize the way you want, right? You've got a lot of options. You just go to view, appearance, and or edit to layout. Just play around with it, right? You will figure it out. All right. Okay. So I'll come here under Force App main default. There's something called LWC. If you look at it, we got none here, right? So yeah, that's one thing I will say, that maybe your company is not using LWC. Maybe they've been using a lot of Visual Force component. So if you don't use anything, you won't find anything here. So this is the place where you create an LWC. You can write a git command to create an LWC, but since you're starting for the first time, the best way to use is the tool chain, right? So you right click here, and now there's an option called create LWC component. So I click here, desired file name, let's say um, LWC series, right? I'll call it as, right? And force.app default, okay? Right? Don't worry about that. It's created the component, yeah? So now I wanted to explain to you guys the files that get created. The test, that's the test, right? LWC, that's the jest, JEST, that's the jest framework it uses. It's used to test the LWC, what you've created. Like, it creates a skeleton code for you, right? So similarly, it will write an LWC skeleton code for you in terms of writing a test. So test has two components, the describe, and I will explain to you the later stage when we reach to the advanced part of it. And in my personal opinion, it's important you write your test class. Though Salesforce will let you, push the component without having any test aspect to it, but I personally believe having a um, test class in place will ensure that if someone wants to change something, you're not breaking it, right? It's like a test-driven approach, and I always prefer to go that route. Okay, so I will minimize this one right here. Now, as you can see, the three files being created. One is the HTML, one is the JS, and one is the meta.xml. So HTML file, this is where you write all your UI stuff here. Obviously, you can see template. Now, you must be wondering, what is template? So template is a, you know, template tag, right? Under template tag, it contains then HTML, which will not render when automatically when the page loads, but instead it will render during the runtime based on your JavaScript code. So it's not like that. Okay, when you load the page, right, it automatically renders everything. So to stop that, you can use the template and you can control the rendering using your JavaScript code. So anything to do with your, adding a button to the page, or I would say a canvas, right? Or you wanted to add a text, right? For instance, if I wanted to do, right, the first text, I can do hello world. I can do hello world, right? This is a simple text. It will render. I don't have to write any code. So what this component will do, this component will render wherever you attach this component. Let's say if you wanted to use the flow, it will just display hello world, which is pretty pointless. But you know, but this is an LWC component, okay? And then you have your JavaScript, right? This is where all the magic happens. Now, import, right? Import is a command using which you import um, the functions or an object from a library. In this case, is importing a Lightning element from LWC, right? And this is the class using which you write all your logic, right? All sort of events, all sort of functionality, you build it under this. Though you can also use TypeScript, that's a little bit different. I will explain to you at the end. If you wanted to use TypeScript, so behind the scene when you compile it, the TypeScript will compile to JavaScript and then get deployed as a package. Okay, so that's very simple, right? And so as a part of this series, right, I will show you a different patterns associated with the JavaScript. Obviously, Salesforce Lightning component use the latest ECMA standard. So that's one of the reasons why I explained to you guys yesterday that it doesn't matter, you know, uh, when you're going to use the LWC, right? It will support the latest version of ECMA standard, right? And that's one of the reasons why I said to you guys that you should know some basic understanding of JavaScript. If you haven't watched that 4 videos I put in yesterday's episode, the link, please go and watch it. It covers a comprehensive short tutorial to get you comfortable with JavaScript. Okay. All right. So that's in a nutshell, right? What this JavaScript is about. So all your logic, right? All your handler logic, event logic will go here, right? So, and next comes to this meta file, right? So this explains whether you wanted to expose this LWC, and you have to specify your target, right? Whether you want to use on the record page, whether you want to use on the flow, and also let's say if you are using this LWC component in the flow, you might be accepting input or output. So accepting input and setting an output, so that can be configured here as well, right? So anything to do with the input and output params, right, you configure here, not in the JavaScript, okay? In the JavaScript, you can make use of the input parameter or the output parameter, okay, to populate the value or retrieve the value and do whatever you want, right? But to define which input param this component will receive, you have to define it here. So that's something you have to keep into consideration. It's a pretty simple, right? It's a component based, right? It's a modular. It's very easy to use, right? As you can see, that LWC is a cake. It's like eating cheesecake. It's that amazing when it works with LWC. It's really amazing technology, I would say, right? You can do lots of cool stuff. We're gonna look at a lot of different stuff. How to use APIs with LWC, all kind of stuff, right? So yeah, that's pretty much I wanted to cover in this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. Adios.